Sir, step away from the BMW now.
It's my car. Just unlocked it. What crime are you alleging?
Theft in progress. You match the call. Don't argue. Hands where I can see them.
I'm not resisting.
Sir, step away from the vehicle right now.
Sir, step away from the vehicle right now. The voice cut through the late afternoon noise of the mall parking lot at 4:18 p.m. Shopping carts rattled on concrete. Car alarms chirped in the distance. The air smelled like hot asphalt and fast food grease drifting from the food court doors. The man standing beside the black BMW froze for half a second, then slowly turned. He was tall, black mid-40s, wearing a charcoal blazer over a plain white shirt. One hand held a set of keys. The other was still inside the open trunk, resting on a shopping bag. "I'm loading my car," he said calmly. "Is there a problem?" The officer took 2 deliberate steps closer. Plain clothes badge clipped to his belt hand, hovering just inches from his cuffs. "We got a report of a vehicle theft in progress. That car matches the description." The man glanced down at the BMW, then back at the officer. He pressed the key fob once. The car lights flashed. Locks clicked. The sound was sharp and unmistakable. "This is my car," he said. "I just came out of the mall." The officer's jaw tightened. He didn't step back. He didn't lower his voice. "I didn't ask you to demonstrate anything. I said step away from the vehicle." A couple walking past slowed down. A teenage girl stopped near a concrete pillar phone already in her hand. A delivery truck idled nearby, its engine humming like background tension. "Officer," the man said, measured, deliberate. "I'm not resisting. I'm telling you there's been a mistake." The officer laughed once, short and sharp. "Funny how that's always the story." The words hung in the air. The man's posture stayed straight, but his eyes hardened. "What exactly was reported?" "Suspicious individual attempting to access a luxury vehicle," the officer replied. "That's you." The man looked around slowly. People were watching now. Not a crowd yet, but enough. Enough to feel exposed. Enough to feel judged. "So loading shopping bags into my own trunk is suspicious." "Don't get smart with me," the officer snapped. His hand touched the cuffs this time. Metal brushed against fabric. A quiet warning sound. The man took a breath. Slow, controlled. "I have identification, registration, everything." "You'll show it when I tell you to," the officer said. "Right now you're being detained." "Detained." The word landed heavy. A woman near the crosswalk raised her phone higher. Someone whispered, "This doesn't look right." The man nodded once, almost to himself. "Okay," he said. "But I want to be very clear. I am not a thief. And this stop is not going to end the way you think it is." The officer smirked. "We'll see about that." The sound of the cuffs unlocking echoed softly in the open parking lot. The parking lot noise fades, and the story pulls backward in time, years before the keys clicked and the cuffs came out. The man standing beside the BMW was named Judge Marcus Ellison. 46 years old, appointed to the federal bench 6 years earlier. Son of a bus driver and a hospital cleaner from Southside Chicago. He grew up in a brick apartment building where sirens were background music and police lights painted the walls blue at night. Marcus learned early how authority felt when it looked at you and decided who you were before you spoke. At 14, he was stopped walking home from basketball practice and searched against a squad car because an officer said he fit a description. No apology followed. Just laughter and a warning to watch himself. That night stayed with him. He studied harder after that. College on scholarship, law school on loans and night shifts. He clerked for a public defender, then joined the U.S. Attorney's Office. He prosecuted fraud cases, civil rights violations, and police misconduct files no one else wanted. Files that made enemies quietly. By the time Marcus took the bench, he was known for precision. Calm voice, no theatrics. He wrote opinions that were airtight, impossible to dismiss on appeal. He ruled against prosecutors when evidence crossed constitutional lines. He denied qualified immunity when officers violated clearly established rights. His courtroom was where excuses went to die. He never talked about his background on the record. He believed the law spoke louder than biography. But people who worked with him noticed something. When defendants were poor or black or visibly uncomfortable, he listened longer. When officers testified, he asked follow-up questions. Always polite, always relentless. That Saturday afternoon at the mall was not unusual. Marcus had driven in after a long week of hearings. He bought dress shirts, a gift for his niece, groceries he did not need but told himself he would cook. He parked close to the entrance because his knee still ached from an old injury. He loaded bags into the trunk the same way he had done 1,000 times before. He did not expect history to repeat itself in a luxury mall parking lot. The officer who approached him had his own history. Officer Daniel Crow, 38 years old, 11 years on the force. Plainclothes unit assigned to retail theft suppression. His personnel file looked clean at first glance. Commendations for productivity, high stop numbers. Supervisors described him as proactive, but buried deeper were the patterns. Complaints filed and closed, citizens describing unnecessary stops, accusations of disrespect. Language that hovered near the line but never crossed it on paper. Internal reviews marked them as unsubstantiated. No body cam footage, no witnesses willing to sign statements. Crow believed in instincts. He said it often. He trusted his gut more than protocols. He had built a reputation on finding crime where others missed it. Supervisors liked his numbers. Mall security liked his presence. It made people feel protected. Over the years, Crow developed a theory he never wrote down. Certain people did not belong in certain places. Expensive cars, upscale stores, quiet suburbs. When he saw someone who challenged that picture, his suspicion lit up before his reason caught up. On the day he confronted Marcus, Crow had already responded to 2 calls. Both vague, both resolved with warnings. Mall security had mentioned a suspicious male near high-end vehicles earlier. No theft confirmed, no plate numbers, no description beyond race and clothing. Crow decided to linger when he saw Marcus at the BMW Blazer. Slightly rumpled shopping bags, visible keys in hand. Crow's mind filled the gaps. He did not see a judge unwinding after a week on the bench. He saw a story he had told himself before. And backing down was not part of Crow's identity. That mattered because this was not just a misunderstanding between 2 men. It was the collision of 2 histories. One built on surviving assumptions. The other built on acting on them without consequence. Marcus stood calm in the parking lot because he had learned that calm was armor. Crow escalated because he had learned escalation worked. Neither of them knew yet that this moment would expose more than a bad stop. It would pull every buried pattern into daylight. The parking lot felt smaller now, not because the space had changed, but because eyes were on them. Marcus sensed it before he saw it. The subtle shift in sound. Footsteps slowing. Conversations dropping a half octave. Officer Marcus said, keeping his hands visible, palms open. I can show you my driver's license, the registration, and the receipt from inside the mall. This will take 30 seconds. Crow shook his head. Not how this works. Marcus reached slowly into his blazer and stopped halfway. I'm going to retrieve my wallet unless you tell me not to. Crow's voice rose. I didn't tell you to reach for anything. I'm asking permission, Marcus replied. Calm. Controlled. The same tone he used in his courtroom when witnesses got defensive. Crow glanced around. People were definitely watching now. A man leaned against his SUV, pretending to text. 2 women stood near a shopping cart corral, phones angled just enough to capture the scene. Someone had already started recording. Crow felt it. The pressure. The sense that backing down would look like weakness. Hands where I can see them. Marcus froze. They are. Then don't move. A child asked his mother why the man was in trouble. The mother didn't answer. She just pulled the child closer. Marcus took a breath. You said there was a theft in progress. There's no theft. The vehicle is registered to me. I have the key. I just demonstrated that. Crow's eyes flicked to the BMW, then back to Marcus. Keys can be stolen. So can assumptions, Marcus said quietly. Crow's face tightened. You want to play word games? No, Marcus said. I want to leave. That's not happening yet. A woman's voice cut in from behind. He showed you the key. Why are you still holding him? Crow turned his head sharply. Ma'am, this does not concern you. It concerns everyone, she replied. This is being recorded. Crow spun back to Marcus. You see what you caused? Marcus met his eyes. I didn't cause this. Crow stepped closer. Too close. The space between them collapsed. Turn around. For what reason? For detention. Marcus nodded once. Not agreement, recognition. Officer, before you do this, I'm going to tell you something. I'm not refusing. I'm complying under protest. Crow reached for the cuffs again. Metal glinted in the sun. Someone in the crowd whispered, "This is crazy." Another voice quieter. This is how it starts. Marcus turned slowly, deliberately, the way he had advised defendants to do when officers escalated. He placed his hands behind his back. The concrete felt hot under his shoes. The mall's music drifted faintly from the entrance, cheerful and disconnected. As the cuffs closed, the sound was sharp. Final. The watching phones didn't move. If anything, they moved closer. Crow guided Marcus toward the patrol vehicle. His grip was firm, not violent, but unnecessary. Marcus didn't resist. He didn't argue. He looked straight ahead. A man stepped forward. "What's his charge?" Crow snapped, interfering with an investigation. "What investigation?" someone else asked. Crow didn't answer. He opened the back door and gestured. Marcus sat. The door shut with a heavy thud. Inside the car, the air smelled like vinyl and old coffee. Marcus stared through the tinted window at the crowd still standing there, watching, recording, remembering. Crow stood outside for a second longer than necessary. He could feel the weight of the moment settling in his chest. He had crossed a line, but turning back now would mean admitting it. He got into the driver's seat and pulled away. Behind them, the mall parking lot returned to normal. Cars moved, people resumed shopping, phones lowered, but the footage was already out there, and the crowd had seen enough to know this was not over. The patrol car moved through traffic without sirens. That was the first thing Marcus noticed. No urgency, no emergency, just a quiet assertion of control. Inside the back seat, the space felt smaller than it should have. Hard plastic pressed against his shoulders. The seat was warm, still holding the heat of the day. His wrists rested on his lower back metal, biting into skin every time the car hit a seam in the road. Crow did not look back. His eyes stayed forward, hands steady on the wheel, radio silent. Marcus counted intersections, a habit from long days on the bench. 7th Street. The light at Oak. The left turn that confirmed they were heading to the precinct and not just circling to make a point. The city passed by like nothing was happening. People crossing streets with shopping bags. A man walking his dog. A bus stopping, doors folding open. Normal life continuing inches away from something that should never have been normal. Crow finally spoke. "You didn't have to make it difficult," Marcus answered without raising his voice. "I didn't." Crow's jaw flexed. Silence returned. Thicker now. Marcus felt the cuffs again. Not just the pressure. The symbolism. He had sentenced men who wore those same cuffs. He had watched defendants flinch at the sound. He had told juries that restraint was not guilt. Now his hands were behind his back for standing next to his own car. At a red light, Crow glanced into the rearview mirror. For the first time, their eyes met since the door closed. Marcus did not look away. He did not glare. He simply held the gaze. Crow looked down first. The precinct parking lot came into view. Concrete, chain link, the building squat and gray. No banners, no ceremony, just procedure. Crow parked and got out. The door opened. Heat rushed in. Marcus swung his legs out slowly. The cuffs pulled his shoulders back. A flash of pain shot up his arms. He exhaled through it. "Watch your step," Crow said. Marcus nodded. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed. Phones rang. Officers moved with casual efficiency. No one looked twice at first. Just another man in cuffs, another intake, another line in a log. A desk officer glanced up. "What have we got?" Crow replied, "Suspicious vehicle theft." Interfering with an investigation? The desk officer looked at Marcus, took in the blazer, the calm expression, the posture. Something paused behind his eyes. "Name," Marcus answered clearly. "Marcus Ellison." The desk officer typed. The keyboard clicked loud in the room, then stopped. He looked at the screen again. Crow shifted his weight. "Problem." The desk officer hesitated, just verifying. Marcus felt it then. The turn. Not relief. Not yet. Just the first crack in the certainty that had followed him from the parking lot. Another officer walked past and slowed. He glanced at the screen, then back at Marcus. His brows drew together. "Run that again," he said quietly. Crow's voice sharpened. "Is there an issue?" The second officer didn't answer him. He picked up the phone. "Lieutenant, I think you should come up front." Marcus stood still. The cuffs were still tight. The room felt suddenly smaller in a different way. This was the moment when mistakes either got buried or exploded. Crow sensed it. His confidence wavered. He straightened, squared his shoulders, tried to reclaim the narrative. Marcus said nothing. He didn't need to. The injustice had already happened. Everything after this was consequence. The lieutenant arrived without urgency. That alone told Marcus something had shifted. Real emergencies came with raised voices and fast steps. This came with silence. Lieutenant Harold Bennett was in his early 50s. 27 years on the job. Gray at the temples. He carried himself like someone who had learned the cost of mistakes the hard way. He stopped just inside the intake area and looked at the screen before looking at the man in cuffs. He did not speak at first. "Who brought him in?" Bennett asked finally. Crow answered quickly. "I did." Suspicious vehicle theft. Subject was uncooperative. Bennett's eyes stayed on the monitor. Uncooperative how? He questioned the stop. Bennett nodded slowly. He turned to Marcus. Sir, do you have identification on you? Yes, Marcus said. In my wallet. Inside my blazer. Bennett looked at Crow. Remove the cuffs. Crow hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Lieutenant, we haven't completed. Remove the cuffs, Bennett repeated. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The metal unlocked. The pressure disappeared. Marcus rolled his shoulders once quietly. He did not rub his wrists. He did not thank anyone. Bennett took the wallet himself. He opened it, flipped past the driver's license, then stopped. His hand stilled. The room changed. He pulled out the credentials slowly. Not because he was unsure what it was, but because he already knew. The seal, the weight, the layout. He looked up at Marcus. Judge Ellison. Marcus nodded. United States District Court. No one spoke. Bennett closed his eyes briefly. A long breath through his nose. Then he turned very slowly toward Crow. You arrested a federal judge, he said. Crow's mouth opened, closed. He never said. He never has to, Bennett cut in. And even if he did, it wouldn't justify this. Bennett handed the credential back to Marcus with both hands. Sir, I apologize. Marcus accepted it. This is not about an apology. Bennett nodded again. He knew that tone. He had heard it across courtrooms before. Understood. He turned to the desk officer. Start an incident report. Preserve all footage. Body cam, mall security, witness video. Then back to Crow. Badge, weapon. Crow stared at him. Lieutenant, now. Crow removed the badge from his belt. The sound it made when it hit the desk was small. Final. Bennett lowered his voice. You are relieved of duty pending investigation. Crow stood very still. The confidence he had carried all afternoon was gone, replaced by something thinner. Fear. Marcus watched quietly, not with satisfaction, with clarity. Bennett turned back to him. Judge Ellison, you are free to go. Transportation will be arranged if you need it. I won't need it, Marcus said. I will need documentation. You'll have it, Bennett replied. Marcus adjusted his blazer, straightened his cuffs. The room parted slightly as he walked toward the exit. Officers stepped aside without being told. At the door he stopped and looked back once. At Crow. At the desk. At the system that had worked just long enough to expose itself. This is going to matter, Marcus said. Then he left. The story did not stay inside the precinct. It escaped before the paperwork was finished. By the time Marcus reached his home that evening, the video from the mall parking lot had already surfaced online. Shaky at first, vertical, filmed from behind a concrete pillar, but clear enough to show a black man standing calmly beside his own car, clear enough to hear the accusation, clear enough to hear the cuffs. By midnight, the clip had been reposted thousands of times. By morning, it was everywhere. News producers slowed it down. Legal commentators paused it frame by frame. Social media did what internal systems never did. It connected patterns. Judge detained for suspected car theft at upscale mall. Federal judge handcuffed after officer ignores proof of ownership. Marcus did not comment publicly. He didn't need to. The footage spoke. The timestamps spoke. The silence from the department spoke louder than any press release. On Monday morning, a civil complaint was filed in federal court. False detention, false arrest, violation of Fourth Amendment rights, racial profiling, failure to supervise, failure to discipline. The filing cited specific seconds in the video, specific phrases spoken by Officer Crow, specific departmental policies ignored. Within hours, Crow's history was pulled into the light. Journalists requested records. Advocacy groups analyzed stop data. What had once been buried in internal files now sat in public spreadsheets. Disparities emerged. Patterns sharpened. Crow had stopped black drivers at more than twice the rate of his peers. His searches yielded less contraband than average. His complaints followed a familiar arc: filed, reviewed, closed. The department announced an internal investigation. Then another announcement followed. Crow was terminated. Cause cited. Policy violations listed. Unlawful detention. Conduct unbecoming. Failure to de-escalate. It did not end there. Supervisors were questioned. Mall security contracts were reviewed. Training protocols were scrutinized. The city attorney called an emergency session and said what everyone else already knew. This is indefensible. Settlement talks began quietly. They ended quickly. The number was large. Large enough to matter. Large enough to send a message. The city paid. The department agreed to oversight. New training, new reporting requirements, new consequences written into policy. Marcus donated the settlement funds to civil rights organizations and legal defense groups. When asked why, he answered once, "This was never about money." Officer Crow did not give interviews. He did not appeal publicly. His badge number disappeared from the roster. His career ended without ceremony. The mall parking lot returned to normal. Cars came and went. Shoppers loaded trunks. No one remembered the exact spot where the cuffs clicked shut, but the footage remained. Used in law schools, in training sessions, in conversations parents had with their children about how quickly things could go wrong. One stop, one assumption, one decision not to listen, and a system forced briefly to look at itself in the mirror. What happened in that mall parking lot was not complicated. It was illegal from the first sentence. Under the Fourth Amendment, a police officer must have reasonable suspicion of a specific crime before detaining someone. Not a feeling, not a hunch, not a vague description. Reasonable suspicion requires articulable facts. Loading shopping bags into a car you own is not one of them. When Officer Crow ordered Marcus to step away from his vehicle, the seizure had already begun. When he ignored proof of ownership and continued the detention, the violation deepened. When he placed handcuffs on a man who posed no threat and committed no crime, it crossed into unlawful arrest. Every step was documented. Every step was indefensible. Legally, this case was clear. Psychologically, it was familiar. Bias does not announce itself. It disguises itself as instinct, as caution, as professionalism. Crow believed he was being proactive. He believed he was reading the situation correctly. What he was actually doing was filling in gaps with assumptions shaped by years of unchecked reinforcement. This is how escalation happens. An officer makes a decision based on bias. That decision is challenged. The challenge feels like disrespect. The officer doubles down to preserve authority. The situation becomes about control instead of truth. For viewers watching this unfold, there are lessons that matter. If you are stopped, keep your hands visible. Move slowly. State clearly that you are complying under protest. Ask what crime is being investigated. Ask if you are free to leave. Do not argue on the street. Document later. If you witness something like this record from a safe distance, say the time and location out loud. Capture badge numbers if possible. Your video may become the difference between a buried report and accountability. And if you are in a position of authority, the lesson is even simpler. Assumptions are not evidence. Confidence is not correctness. Power without reflection becomes abuse faster than anyone expects. Marcus Ellison did nothing special in that parking lot. He did what thousands of people do every day. The only difference was who he was and the system that finally had to face itself because of it. Justice did not happen because the system was kind. It happened because it was watched. So the real question is not what happened to one officer or one judge. The question is how many times this happens without cameras, without credentials, without consequences, and what you would do if you were standing there when it did.